Well, the story of American Biolabs in Ukraine dates all the way back to 2005. That's according to a former Security Service officer who spoke with RT about the murky history. He divulged that research centers for biological weapons and dangerous disease strains were operating on Ukrainian soil with the knowledge of Kyiv officials, but without their control.
As far as I know, in 2022, after the start of the special military operation, the American side hastily shut down its laboratories due to concerns that the results of their work, and indeed the very fact of their biological weapons development, would fall into the hands of the Russian army, which would constitute direct evidence of international crimes on the part of the United States. According to my information, these laboratories were relocated to other countries. In particular, the Ukrainian laboratories moved to the Baltics. Not all of them, of course, but this is not a unique situation to Ukraine. These laboratories have long been located in Georgia, Armenia, Central Asia, and the Far East. So, this is not unique to Ukraine. There are hundreds of these laboratories, and they are scattered throughout the world, conducting research specific to their geographic regions and, accordingly, specific genetic habitats. Back when I was working in Ukraine, in the central office of the Security Service of Ukraine, in 2016 and 2017, I came across SBU documents that explicitly stated that medical facilities were operating in Ukraine that were effectively outside the control of the Ukrainian authorities. These included biolaboratories operating under the auspices of the U.S. Department of Defense, where work was being conducted on biological weapons and strains of highly dangerous diseases. Even back then, I found this suspicious, primarily because access to these laboratories was restricted. Even Ukrainian parliamentarians were unable to access these facilities. They actually had their own security. The history of these laboratories in Ukraine dates back to 2005, when then Democratic Senator Barack Obama visited Kyiv. He reached an agreement with the Ukrainian authorities, and sometime later, an agreement on joint activities in the field of biological security was signed, with the Ukrainian Ministry of Health and the U.S. Department of Defense acting on one side.
The controversy of U.S. biolabs in Ukraine fueled a huge scandal, and Vasily Prozorev accused the U.S. and Ukraine of trying to cover their tracks when the news broke, with Washington denying any existence of these labs. It claimed Russia was spreading fake news, which we know was a lie.
As we have said all along, Russia is inventing false pretexts in an attempt to justify its own horrific actions in Ukraine. The United States does not own or operate any chemical or biological laboratories in Ukraine. It is in full compliance with its obligations under the Chemical Weapons Convention and Biological Weapons Convention, and it does not develop or possess such weapons anywhere.
Meanwhile, U.S. intelligence chief Tulsi Gabbard has recently launched investigations into more than 120 foreign-operated biolabs, apparently financed by Washington.
Gabbard told the Post Monday in a statement that her team is going to identify where these labs are, what pathogens they contain, and what research is being conducted to end dangerous gain-of-function research that threatens the health and well-being of the American people and the world. Yet despite these obvious dangers, politicians, so-called health professionals like Dr. Fauci, and entities within the Biden administration's national security team lied to the American people about the existence of these US-funded and supported biolabs and threatened those who attempted to expose the truth.
According to ex-SBU officer Prozorev, any investigation initiated by Director Gabbard is really a political game meant to tarnish Democrats, but risks digging up compromising evidence against Trump.
I think the roots of this lie in the domestic political struggle in the United States. I think that, with the Senate and congressional elections this fall, Trump's team needs some leverage against the Democrats. The key to this investigation is not to expose themselves. Because these labs were operating perfectly well in Ukraine during Trump's previous presidency. Among his entourage, among his advisors, there are people who were well aware of what these labs were doing. They can, of course, find evidence and proof that confirms the illegal activities of, say, the Democratic Party representatives in the United States who initiated the creation of these labs. But they can also dig up facts that will indicate that these labs were engaged in the same activities during Trump's first presidency.